Welcome, brothers and sisters, to Campfire Community, sharing wisdom and guidance on the journey of life. I'm Ed Woodstock, and today's short talk is about awareness, presence, and understanding our nervous system more deeply. And if we think about what our nervous system does and what it was designed or has evolved, or as it continues to evolve, how it best serves us in our survival, we can understand some really interesting things about ourselves. Especially if we're the type of person that feels like we oftentimes can perceive that there is some kind of threat around us, where we fear that there is this anticipation of something negative or something bad or something impending that we're worried about on a subconscious level. It can feel like this low-level anxiety or anticipation. And if we simply think about our bodies as computers, as instruments of sensation, we have these five senses, right? We're seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, feeling, tasting, all the things. And the feedback that we get from these five senses that are directly linked to our nervous system, when we touch something, when we see something, when we hear something, smell something, taste something. Is this taste something nourishing or poisonous? Is what we're seeing a threat, or is it friendly? Is it something we can procure as a resource, or is it something we should avoid? Are we hearing an animal that could attack us? Are we smelling something that could be fresh food, or something that could be nourishing and healthy? What are we perceiving with the five senses? Which is essentially how we see the whole world and perceive and experience and interact with the whole world. When we start to understand that this nervous system, from the brain to the spine and all the extension of that central nervous system, how this nervous system operates to protect us, we start to see it as an ally. But there are parts of this nervous system that may not serve us as well as they maybe used to when we needed it for survival in a more primal setting. So if you think about the nervous system that we've inherited, our great-great-great-great-grandmother and great-great-great-great-grandfather, they survived. Maybe some of their siblings and relatives did not survive, but they survived, and they procreated, and that survivor became your ancestor. And then they survived, and they became your ancestor, and so on and so forth. So the lineage that we are connected to, just based on the simple fact that we exist, is based upon the inheritance of a nervous system that protected all of the ancestors that we are born from. And all of these ancestors had to face challenges, threats, actual, perceived, real danger, perceived danger, social dynamics, or actual physical danger. And when we recognize that the five senses and the ability to sense into what's going on in our environment was literally the difference between life and death. Our ability to sense a threat from maybe a dangerous animal, a dangerous environment, a dangerous person, to see the benefit of aligning ourselves with environments that we're able to procure resources and nourishing resources, or protection within group or social dynamics. These were all things that our five senses were really acutely attuned to perceiving and sensing so that we could survive in a healthy way. And so fast forward 2024, we are still operating with a nervous system that protected our ancestors from the threat of a saber-toothed tiger or from an invading tribe. And although we don't have the same threats in our lives right now from dangerous predatory animals trying to attack and eat us. Sometimes if we hear a sudden loud noise, or if someone says something that threatens our place and social standing in that social dynamic, it can sometimes feel as if it's a threat from being cast out of the tribe. And so now our nervous systems react not to the potential threat of being eaten by a predator per se, but our nervous systems react from seeing something on social media that could be seen as an exclusion or a threat to our social standing. And so you have to realize that the nervous system that was designed to protect us from an acute physical danger is sometimes being hijacked by small perceived threats in our local environment. And so how does this tie into awareness and presence? Well, as a meditation teacher and practitioner, and as someone who was a firefighter here in Brooklyn, New York for many years, my job essentially was when someone called 911, the alarm went off. And right there, that kind of fight or flight would kick in. The alarm would go off in the fire station and we would respond. So here I was reacting like Pavlov's dog to this bell, knowing that there could be an overturned car, a child choking, a house on fire, or all of the things that we could possibly show up to. And I had to be prepared for those environments. So my rational mind would understand that I could be going into a dangerous situation, but I also was trained to stay calm and focused and rely on my training and resources and the teammates that I was with to make sure that we stayed safe and protected ourselves. But understanding that when the bell goes off, the nervous system has a reaction. And seeing a lot of the people that I worked with over the course of years in emergency services, seeing how they react to stress, it helped me to understand that sometimes the way that we're trained to, or should I say used to, or conditioned to, or taught to respond to stress doesn't serve us anymore. And so when we talk about awareness, we can recognize that when we're in certain environments, when we are with certain people, when we are experiencing certain situations or experiences, that they can trigger us in a way that can allow our nervous systems to react in a more primal way. But the way that our nervous system is reacting may not be in proportion to the perceived threat. It may be an extreme reaction that causes us to suffer and feel a greater sense of urgency or fear or anxiety than is necessary for that environment. So when we start to recognize that the nervous system that we carry in our body is the same nervous system that was designed to protect our ancestors and then their ancestors, we can recognize that where in the lineage where we inherited this nervous system is it benefiting us by protecting us from a threat that might be real. So as an example, we could be walking, about to cross the street and not paying attention to the light. And all of a sudden we hear a car horn and a screech and we just jump back and we react. That could be a way that our nervous system is protecting us from an immediate danger and threat. So in that situation, our nervous system operating in the way that it should is a healthy thing. But if we find that someone says something or writes a comment on social media, and all of a sudden we have this jarring jolt of a reaction that there's some perceived threat that is going to threaten our lives, our safety, our health, and well-being, we can see that maybe that level of reaction is not helpful. It's actually creating higher levels of anxiety. And what's happening is our nervous system is dumping adrenaline and cortisol and other stress hormones into our system to try to help us to manage this threat. Maybe we have to fight off an attacking animal, or run away from an attacking tribe, or jump out of the way of a car. That would be a useful way for our nervous system to react. But if we are reacting as if our life is being threatened and someone is simply not inviting us to a party, or commenting on somebody wrote something on some news post, and we are deeply identified with that belief system, it can sometimes feel for some people as if their nervous system is being threatened with a real, visible, clear, and present danger. And that doesn't serve us. That can actually put us into adrenal fatigue and burn us out and make us feel exhausted and preoccupied with fear and stress and anxiety, because our nervous system is operating as if there is some looming, impending danger and threat to our immediate health and safety. And that's just not true. So when we talk about presence and awareness, we also have to talk about how we sometimes can perceive things in the world through the lens of the nervous system that we've inherited from our ancestors. And what does that mean? Well, it means if you're in a situation and you do notice that you feel a certain way, you may want to spend some time to investigate why you feel that way. You may want to spend some time to just acknowledge that you're feeling anxious about something, or you're anticipating something negative, and just explore it. Take a deep breath into the belly. Slowly release it. And just explore your body, because the body does keep the score. As the famous book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk teaches us about our nervous system. That if we're feeling tightness and tension in the body, first of all, we can switch over into parasympathetic nervous system, a more relaxed rest and digest system of being, by taking a deep breath into the belly using the diaphragm muscle. And this can just give us a sense of ease and peace and relaxation. Just relaxing the body by mimicking a restful and relaxed state. So when we take that deep breath into the belly, and we slowly release, that's a way for us to connect with the body and maybe get out of the thinking mind a little bit and connect more with the physical body. And when we connect with the physical body with that presence and awareness, we can even ask ourselves, where am I feeling tension? Where am I feeling tightness? Where am I feeling an anxiety, a stress? Where am I feeling a confusion or a fear? Where am I feeling a sadness or an anticipation, a grief? And when we can just sit with that, we can start to recognize where the nervous system that we inherited from our ancestors is trying to protect us by keeping us safe, so we're feeling this perceived threat. But if we ask ourselves, is this a real threat? Most of the times, the answer is no. And then by taking that breath deep into the belly and switching our nervous system out of fight and flight into rest and digest, sensing into the body, connecting with the felt experience of our perceived threat, and asking ourselves the question if it's an actual threat, exploring what we're feeling, why we're feeling it, and spending some time to simply notice and practice presence and awareness around what our mind is perceiving as a thought, how that thought turns into a feeling, how that feeling affects the nervous system, and evaluating whether the reaction that we're having is an appropriate one in measure to what we're experiencing, or if we're experiencing a heightened level of anxiety to something that really is not a big deal. We can then use the power of the breath, use the power of awareness, use the power of presence to acknowledge that our nervous system is reacting, and then instead we can choose that response to breathe deeply into the belly, resetting our nervous system, acknowledging the feeling in our body, acknowledge the story that we're telling ourselves about this perceived threat, reminding ourselves that the thing that we think is dangerous and certain annihilation or certain danger or death is not going to hurt us, that we don't need to react negatively, adversely, intensely, violently, aggressively, that we can instead choose a response from a place of calm, from a place of presence. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't need to react at all. Someone may have said something inappropriate and offensive and insulting, but instead of reacting from a place of anger and frustration and heated and giving your power away to these external environments and other people, we can instead take our power back, choose a more intentional and measured response, and make a choice about how we want to allocate our time and energy to confronting this problem or this conflict, whether we choose to confront it at all. We may not want to confront it. We may realize that we're just reacting negatively to something that is not a big deal, and we can just choose to take our power back, breathe deeply, and just like clouds in the sky, we can notice that the clouds are there, but we don't have to react. We can just let that feeling, that thought, that emotion pass through the sky. And understand that presence and awareness really is the sky. That our thoughts and emotions, our feelings are like the clouds. No amount of fighting or frustration with the clouds is going to make them disappear. But if you just sit there and observe them from a place of awareness, from a place of presence, you can watch them drift by. You don't have to get engaged. You don't have to take it personally. You don't have to change the environment. You can just simply observe the clouds. Because the truth is, the truth of who you are is that you are the observer. You are the sky. You are not the clouds. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your feelings. You are the awareness behind the thoughts, the feelings, and the emotions. And so sometimes when we suffer greatly in this world, it's when we identify with these thoughts and emotions as if they are our identity. That we confuse the thoughts and feelings and beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. We believe that that is the truth of who we are. But if we practice presence and awareness, if we can breathe deeply when we find ourselves reacting to these feelings and emotions and thoughts, when we can examine our beliefs and see them like clouds in the sky, and not identify or attach ourselves or derive a sense of an identity from these feelings and thoughts and emotions, we get this detachment from these thoughts and feelings. And we can separate ourselves from these emotions. Instead of getting dragged into them and intertwined with them, we can separate ourselves from them and give ourselves a little space from these thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And when we do that, we sit in greater presence. The thoughts that we have in our minds, the feelings that we have, the beliefs that we hold, they don't have to define us, hold us back, or have power over us. We can simply observe them as what they are. They're simply thoughts and emotions and beliefs. And we can choose to let them float by. We could even choose to let them go if they don't serve us anymore. Not every belief system that we have is meant to serve us. Not every belief system that we have is meant to be something that we have our whole lives. There are many things that we have believed when we were younger that no longer serve us. And so as part of our practice, we can observe the thoughts, emotions, feelings, belief systems that serve us, and we can also recognize the ones that do not serve us anymore. And when we recognize through presence and awareness that these belief systems no longer serve us, we can choose to let them go. Sometimes on our spiritual journey, it's less about acquiring more things. It's self-improvement and understanding oneself. Sometimes it's much less about knowing, acquiring, gaining, and grasping onto new things, but sometimes it's about letting go, releasing, and surrendering, and accepting the reality of the way things are, and releasing the things that no longer serve us. So as we continue to practice presence, as we practice awareness, as we understand our nervous system and how it's designed to protect us, and why it serves us, and how it is an ally to protect us, it makes a great servant, but a terrible master. So our thoughts can also be a great servant, but a terrible master. Our emotions, our nervous system, can be a great servant, but a terrible master. So when we notice that our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs are ruling us and overpowering us, it's sometimes nice to sit in the presence of awareness and recognize that our nervous system, our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, our feelings, our beliefs are ruling us, and they're controlling us, and they're creating a lot of turmoil and suffering in our lives. And through the simple practice of tapping into the awareness, tapping into the presence of the body, tapping into the felt sense, the five senses, and observing the beliefs, the feelings, the emotions, and just deep breathing into the belly, staying relaxed and softening in, accepting, surrendering, and releasing the things that no longer serve us, thanking our body and our mind for serving us and protecting us in our time of need, but not allowing it to control us, is a really valuable tool that we can use to help us stay grounded and to cultivate the inner peace that many of us are looking for. You know, a lot of us look outside of ourselves to pacify ourselves or to relax ourselves. We look to reach for something to drink or smoke or scroll or look at, or someone, another person, a love, a relationship, status, money, wealth, fame, all the things that we look to try to fill the void within us, when sometimes we simply need to just sit with what we're feeling, recognize that we don't need to believe the thoughts. We don't need to engage in the emotional reaction. We can take a deep breath, take back awareness and presence, take back control and power of what we're feeling, and breathe deeply and cultivate the inner peace that we're really looking for from the external. So instead of us looking outwardly to external things to solve our problems, we take our power back and realize that we are the ones responsible, that we are the very ones we've been looking for, and that we hold the key to the very things that we look for outside of ourselves. So take those deep breaths into the belly, acknowledge when you're feeling, thinking, and believing something that is just unhelpful and unhealthy, and release it. Surrender, let go, accept, observe, practice awareness, and breathe deeply. Until next time, be kind to yourself so we can be kind to each other.